All right, guys. I want to thank you all for tuning in this week for the Marvin Bennett Show. Sunday was just Father's Day, so tonight's show we're going to dedicate to all the fathers out there. And I want to open it up as usual with prayer. Father, we thank you, God, for another opportunity of prayer. We thank you, God, for allowing us to see another day. Thank you, God, for everybody that's a part of this show. We thank you, God, for each individual. Thank you, God, for our experiences, oh God. We ask you, God, that you help the people, and hopefully we'll come away with this show. Lives being changed and people being moved by our stories that we share. Thank you. We praise you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Again, today is Tuesday, following Father's Day. Happy Father's Day. Everybody on the panel tonight is fathers. I got my big bro, Kevin Danley, in the building. He has a daughter. I got my man, Mike Barbee. He's here. What you got, Mike? 4? 5?
Yep. 4,
yeah.
bro. Don't do me like that.
Yeah, I gotta ask, you know what I mean? And I got my man Rome. He got a budding basketball star here in North Carolina as a son. You know, I got 2 of my own. So, you know, tonight what we kind of do is we're gonna, you know, a lot of times we talk about moms, we talk about men, us particularly as black men. I want to kind of get, you know, big up our pops tonight. You know what I mean? So all you people as you tuning in on Facebook, if you can, do me a favor. Shout out your pop's name in the comments. I don't care what your relationship status it is. You know what I mean? Whether it's on good terms, whether it's on bad terms. We bigging up all the dads tonight. You know what I mean? Because bottom line, no matter what the situation may be, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't even feel the way that we do. You know what I'm saying? So whether we want to give it to them or not, we owe them something. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna start it out with first up. I'm gonna let Mike start it out. You got the biggest number of the kids out there. You know, talk about some of your experiences, Mike. Tell the people your name, where you're from, and you know what it means. What it means for you to be a dad.
All right. My name is Michael Barbee. I've been a dad for my 22nd year. So my oldest is 21, but she'll be 22 in August. So I've been at it for a while. Started off young. So, I mean, I was 23, 24 at the time. I think the biggest challenge was at that point in time was me and my ex-wife, we were young at it. And so we were the only ones that had kids. And so all of our friends just kind of gravitated to our kids, you know, at a very young age. And so we saw where people didn't have the same experiences as we were, like just going through, you know, just trying to balance kid life with social life, with, at that time for both of us, fraternity and sorority life. So it was just a lot of factors that played into that. So, but yeah, I've been at it for that long. So, but that's what's going on with me.
And before the rest of the guys come on, I kind of glad you went there because I want all you guys to kind of hit on that if you don't mind. Like for me personally, I was thinking about this, you know, in the light of Father's Day. I honestly think that I would have been divorced like probably a whole lot of years ago, truth be told, if it wasn't for my boys. But I think, you know, I think my ex-wife, for the fact that she respected the way I viewed, you know, the importance of family and having both the mother and the father in the home, you know what I mean? Because that wasn't something that she had to do. So I thank her for that. But I think, you know, we was kind of like minded in shaping that, you know, if you would need to talk to mommy tonight, you can come in the room and talk to mommy. If you need to talk to daddy, you know, you can come talk to daddy. Like you guys I think are great fathers. You know what I mean? But that wasn't always the case in all you guys scenario, you know what I mean? You guys had both, you know, you guys went through divorce, but you know, talk about that struggle, what it's like to be like a dedicated dad, but not always be there 24/7, so to speak. Physically in the same household, you know what I mean? Not that you're not physically, not that you're not there 24/7, but to be physically there in the same household, you know what I mean? Talk about the struggle of that when you don't have that.
I guess for me, that never was a struggle per se, because I grew up without my dad in the house. So it was really important for me to actively be there in my kids' lives. So part of who I am today was based upon my experiences growing up. So, a lot of people would say, I have, I'm somewhat of a nurturing father, because there have been points and times where I really have just been single dad since I've been divorced. And so we've been divorced 8 years. We have, a great friendship, as a result, but it hadn't always been that way. So, but at the same time, it's just been, pros and cons to it.
All right, Kev, I save you for last since you the OG out of all of us. You can go ahead and tackle it next.
You said me, Mar?
Yeah.
Can y'all hear me? Can you hear me good? 'Cause I'm in the car.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I appreciate y'all having me on this evening. Happy Father's Day to everyone that's up here.
Appreciate it. Thank you, bro.
Absolutely. And back at you.
I appreciate it. Like Mar said, my name's Jerome. I'm from North Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina. Pretty much born and raised. I stayed in Johnson County pretty much 10, 11 years. I'm 36. I had my son at a very young age. I was actually 18, still in high school when I had my son. So obviously I had to grow up pretty quickly. But so now my son's 17, be 18 the end of this year. I'm 36. So obviously I had him at a young age, so I had to start. I'm still in high school when I had my son. So for me, I played basketball. Quite, I was trying to start athlete, basketball, football, ran track. So I still had to juggle all of those three things. I had to juggle school. I was going to pick up a child from daycare after football practice, or after basketball practice, or track practice, if you will. So it taught me. My dad was a great father. So he passed away in 2006, but he kind of instilled in me to be what type of father to be. But it wasn't always easy, because you got to think I'm still young, right? I'm still 18, 19, going to college, about to go play ball, all of those things. I'm still, my mind's still not, I can honestly say I didn't start understanding about being a man and probably about until after college, to be honest, when I had to get into the working world, right? So, was I there for my son? Yes, but I didn't know how to be a father yet, right?
Right.
I had to learn that. Did I have a good support system? Absolutely. But for me, it was I ain't gonna lie, it wasn't easy. But then I remember when I got out of college, I started working. That's how I met you, Marvin, at the fitness, lifestyle family fitness. I mean, I used to go out like every weekend, Friday, Saturday, when I first started working, spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And then after 2 years of that, that's when I realized, all this money you're spending, man, that could be going to Jeremiah, your son, right? So after that, man, the button clicked. And ever since then, man, I feel like I've been the best dad in the world. So to me now, it seems like it's a lot easier. In my opinion, I just think it's a lot easier. My son's a great basketball player in high school, about to be one more year, senior year. So we can relate. Like, one thing about me and my son, we can both relate, because I played ball and things like that. He's tall and lanky, just like I was, but he's taller than me at 6'5". So it's just a blessing, man. We spent Father's Day together. Sunday, went out to eat. I took the whole family out to eat. My other brothers and my stepdad. So I'm telling you, man, when you understand about when you really appreciate being a father, whether it's late or never, when you start to appreciate it, it's one of the most beautiful feelings ever.
Right.
Yeah. All right, Kev, what you got for us, Dr. Danley?
Yeah, as Marv said, I'm Kevin Danley from Newark, New Jersey. For me, and my daughter is 22. She just turned 22 May 1st. I also have two stepdaughters who will be 20. One will be 20 this year, and the other just turned 17. But my daughter, who is 22, she came along when I was 27. I was in the military. I was in college at the time, and it was planned. My now ex-wife and I planned for it. Um, and it's been a tremendous experience, obviously, for 22 years. You know, I think about the fact that my biological father was not in my life growing up. In fact, I only met my biological father one time, and it was for all of 10 seconds. I was like 14 years old. It's the only time I ever saw him. Um, so my experience has been in other brothers that I've met, like me, who didn't have their fathers in their lives growing up. They've gone one of two ways. There's usually not much in between. Either you end up just like that, or the total opposite end of the spectrum. I went the total opposite end of the spectrum. I always knew growing up that, when I had children, I was going to make sure that I was there, that I was present, regardless of anything. And I think I've done that. I think I've done a good job of that. Obviously, I'm not perfect. None of us are. I'm not the perfect dad. I'm not a perfect person. But my daughter means the world to me. So, I've tried to be there for her. And Marv, you talked about um, the struggles of not being there every day. My ex-wife and I divorced when my daughter was 9 years old. So from that point on, that was the worst part for me. The only reason I even stayed as long as I did was because of my daughter. Quite frankly, we started having problems, not long after my daughter came along, unfortunately, but I stayed as long as I did because of my daughter. And if I'm being honest, I think that's a mistake.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong, I don't have regrets. But at the same time, I think that's a mistake because your kid, they're picking up on that energy. Kids, they're very perceptive. So it's not as though they don't know that something's not right. And to me, I feel like I would much rather have had the two of us be apart and yet friends versus being in that environment where there was always arguing and fussing and fighting going on, and for her to have experienced that for as many years as she did. So again,
In
even
other
though I
words,
don't
you want
have
your child to
regrets,
have a more peaceful atmosphere as opposed to just a traditional family. If it's not a peaceful home,
absolutely,
just for the
yeah.
sake of
So
having that family.
Yeah.
right,
Okay.
and a lot of people do that. I saw Mike shaking his head. A lot of folks do that. They stay because they love their kids. But again, I just, if I had it to do all over again, I would have done it differently. I would have
I
left
would.
sooner,
Yeah.
and so my daughter wouldn't have had to experience what she had to experience in an unhealthy marriage. But at the
Right.
same time, again, once the divorce came about, my daughter and I mean, we stayed close. I've made sure to stay present from day one. So even though, and that was the hardest part. Once we got divorced, or even when we separated, because we were separated for a year before we divorced. And man, that day of leaving was one of the hardest days. It's funny because there's a dichotomy there. On one hand, it was great because I felt so at peace because I knew I was getting out of this bad marriage.
Hmm.
So from that standpoint, I felt really at peace. But then on the other hand, I knew I wasn't going to be able to see my daughter every single day anymore. And that was rough. That was tough. And it took some getting used to. And in fact, I don't know that I ever did get used to it, quite frankly. I just
Right.
dealt with it to the best of my ability. And, I had my daughter, she was with me twice a month. But the one thing I will say about my ex-wife, because our marriage did not end well, it was not amicable in any way. And she was really bitter for a long time. But the one thing she never, ever did, and I give her credit for that, she never once used my daughter against me.
Right.
Even when she hated me, when we first divorced, she realized the importance of, a dad being in a kid's life. And if it wasn't my weekend, but I was in the area, or if I just said, hey, look, I want to come and get Kayla and take her to lunch, or whatever the case is, that was never an issue.
Right.
She hated me and she didn't want to see me when I pulled up, of course. But, at the same time, she never used my daughter against me. And from that standpoint, it was great. And since then, you know, we've obviously our relationship has gotten a lot better since then. So,
Right.
you know, because that was my daughter was 9 at the time, and she's 22 now. So it's been a lot of years.
Okay.
There goes the guy. Yeah.
I kind of went through something very similar. I think when my ex-wife and I finally split, I just couldn't bear the notion of having to do visitations. So we came up with the idea of, you know, you keep them a week, I keep them a week. And it actually gave us a sense of balance to where, you know, we both had to start over with, you know, dating and you know, adjusting a single life. So for me, it allowed me to continue to be engaged with my kids, know exactly what's going on with them. The biggest transition with that is, you know, once you split and you have two different households, there are rules that I might have that their mom didn't have and things of that sort. And so to some degree, the kids can start picking up on stuff like, oh, I can do this at mom's house. I can't do this at dad's house. Or I can do this at dad's house and mom ain't gonna have that. So, you know, those were the, you know, type of the issues that we started, you know, to have earlier on. So
yeah, I can definitely relate.
While you there, like Kev, you kind of mentioned it, how, you know, kids pick up on that energy. Like, have you guys, can you ever think of any, like, some kind of funny, maybe, scenarios to where, like, you know, the kids take advantage of you guys, divorcing or separating at the same time? Like Mike, you said, I know I can't get away with this at dad. Like, how long was that first time that they tried to pull the okie doke on one of you guys, play you against the other?
Pretty much immediately. At least in my case, you know, I think that was pretty much immediate. She definitely tried to pit us against each other. But again, even when my ex was hating me, we still communicated with regards to her.
Right.
So, you know, we tried to stay on the same page. And I think we did a pretty decent job of staying on the same page, even though, yeah, like Mike was saying, you know, rules at my house weren't necessarily going to be the exact same. We tried to mirror things as much as we could, you know, but at the same time, fundamentally speaking, you know, there's just some things that we differ on. So not everything was going to be the exact same for my daughter in each location. And yeah, she definitely tried to pit us against each other. And it worked from time to time, but it was rare because, again, we did communicate regarding her. So, you know, and I think my daughter figured out pretty quickly that, oh, okay, well, they're communicating. So, you know, because if she said one thing and I checked with her mom and then I had to pull her card on it. Like, hey, your mom said this, but you're telling me this. So I think she realized pretty quickly that it was going to be pretty tough to pull a wool over anybody's eyes. But she tried.
Right. Yeah.
Mike, you said you got four, man. I know.
Man, Micaiah would have an entire social life on her mom's side. And I was like, you did, like, now that we can have such discussions, I'm like, you did all that? She was like, yeah. And I'm sitting here like, oh my God. But, you know, there's just certain things that, and not to necessarily put that mom out like that, but it's just, as a dad, you're able to be more authoritative, and that's part of our role. You know, we put our foot down. Moms tend to nurture and coddle a little bit. So, you know, even in that particular transition, you know, I had to learn how to nurture more, you know, and then mom had to learn how to put a foot down. Like, some things it's not gonna happen. And, you know, at first it was, okay, I'm gonna call your dad and tell your dad that you're not doing X, Y, and Z, so he can put them in place. Well, at some point, you have to figure out how to do it yourself, because I'm not going to always be around to do that. And even vice versa, like, you know, there's times where, you know, they really need to talk. And, you know, even to this day, like, I have my middle son, Micah, he gravitates to his mom, but that's who he feels more comfortable talking to, because, you know, she can buffer some of the stuff that he's going through. With me, I'm just gonna be like, that ain't the way. So.
yeah, like you said, Mike, I was the same way as a dad. You know, love it or hate it. Hey, listen, and I always told both my boys this, like, for life. Hey, listen, if we become good friends, then more the merrier. I thank God for it. But at the end of the day, God ain't put me here to be your friend. You know what I'm saying? It's all right if you feel some kind of way about me, but at the end of the day, when I stand for a guy, I'm gonna say, listen, I sometimes you got some, and that's the thing I think is a big misconception. I don't know about you guys, but me personally, like I think a lot of moms had a feeling that you just let them do whatever, or you don't want to. Like, no, I get scared, just as scared when he about to try to do a 10-foot jump on a bike. You know what I mean? But I can't, as a dad, I can't be like, no, baby, you can't do that.
Right.
As a father, that ain't what we do as dad. But it don't mean that we don't feel that way, or we not kind of anxious, like, well, I don't want my son to get hurt. Like, oh my God, like you don't want to cripple him at the same time either. You know what I'm saying? Hey, Rome. So Rome, you got a boy. They got girls. You know, you got a son. So what was it? What was Jeremiah's experience like trying to play you against the moms? Not being there, you know.
Well, I wouldn't say he necessarily try to play me against his mom, but even to this day, he will. What he'll do is he'll obviously ask his mom for something because he'll be like, "Well, Dad just did this." Like, for example, I think it was his PlayStation 4 messed up. This is like a month ago or so, and he was like, I was like, okay, what's wrong with it? Blah, blah, blah. Okay. All right. So I buy him a new PlayStation, 300 and some bucks. Okay, cool. So then about a week later, I was in the shoe store and I was like, man, all right. Well, nice. I bought him two pair of Jordans, right? So I'm like, damn, I just spent like $700 on my son in a month.
Can I be your son?
He shouldn't need nothing else, right?
Right.
2 days later, he sent me a text with me and his mom, a group text. Hey, I need a PlayStation card, blah, 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 blah. So he put it out there because he know his mom could be like, just ask your dad. And she know I'm not going to say no. But at the end of the day, I'm like, boy, I just bought you like $700 worth of stuff. You better figure it out. He won't never play us, but he'll ask her. And then she'll ask me. Because she'll be like, well, your son want this. But he know not to ask me because he know I probably like just kicked out a lot of money for him. So he won't necessarily. That's the only way I can see him playing us against each other. But it's not nothing major. He'll be like, all right, Dad just did all this. All right, Mom, I need this. And then she'll call me or video chat me and be like, oh yeah, your son say he need this. I said, oh, who he asked you, right? And she'll be like, yeah. I said, yeah, he asked you because he didn't tell you that we just spent $1,000 somewhere.
Right.
So what you want me? Oh, nah, you got the hell of that this time. So he, as far as needing things, he'll come to me for certain things, come to her for certain things. And then certain things I call her and I'll be like, all right, your son need this is about, $600-700. You got half on it? And she'll say yes sometimes, and she'll be like, no, but he really, I don't think he play us that much. He probably do. He play her more than she play me because he know I ain't going for it first and foremost. But he's at that age, especially like anything sports related, his shoes, I got him. You get it, right? I got you on that. Like basketball camps, workouts, all that, I got you. Don't come to me for clothes because I don't buy his clothes because I don't buy some of the stuff you wear. I ain't buying all that small stuff. So your mama can buy you your clothes. I'm gonna buy you, sports gear, all your sports stuff and all of that, and shoes because I love shoes myself. He's a good kid though, straight A student, so that's why he almost get anything he wants. He do the right thing in the end.
Yeah. That makes it so much easier too.
It does, man. He's so freaking smart, like. And I feel like if he applied himself more, he might be the valedictorian next year. But I don't think he's gonna apply because he focused more on. Okay, I'm good enough. I got the A honor roll, and I play basketball. That's all I really need. But I'm like, man, you could be much more of that. But I can't fault him for just being an A student either. So it's not like. But I always try to, encourage him. You can always be better, no matter what. Right. It's just never. Don't never get stagnant or plateau. Just always, reach for higher. Even with his basketball, stuff. Which, I tell him, look, okay, you did 50 shots a day. That okay, you do 60 tomorrow. Okay, then you do 70 the next day. Then you do 80 the next day. Like, don't never think 50 is enough.
Right.
Yeah. So Like, all right, so next up we're gonna talk about is, the joys of being a father. You know, like, I got two boys. I give you an example of both of them. So, like with DeAndre, like, I don't know about you guys, but for me, like, my relationship with my oldest son is totally different than it is with my youngest son. Because, like, that first, I tell people all the time, man, listen, parenting does not come with a manual. It doesn't come with a how-to. So
Right.
it's like, that first one, I feel like a lot of times that first one, we more so like, listen, I don't want to break the baby. You know what I mean? We might be, you know what I'm saying? We might be a little bit more stricter on that first one. Whereas, that second one, like, okay, that one right there, he turning out all right. So I might be able to lax a little bit in a few of these areas. You know what I mean? But I remember this one time when DeAndre, we had found a turtle in our backyard. So he liked it. It was cool. Daddy, look, we found this big old turtle. So I remember telling him, like, well, go get the turtle. You know what I'm saying? Let's go get it so we can take some pictures with it. And he did not want to get the turtle. He did not want to get the turtle whatsoever. And I'm like, DeAndre, it's just a turtle. That turtle can't hurt you. Go get the turtle.
Right.
So it turned into this thing after about 15, 20 minutes. So I go to dad mode on him. Like, boy, if you don't pick that turtle up, you know what I'm saying? I'm about to go get my belt. You know what I'm saying? He's, Daddy, I don't want to pick it up. I don't want to pick it up. I don't want to pick it up. And I was like, all right, Lysa, go ahead and get the belt for me. You know what I'm saying? You're going to pick that turtle up today or whatever. So he ain't want to get a beating. So, I mean, he's crying and everything. And he went down. It took him a while to get it, but he picked the turtle up. And, like, all of a sudden, as he realized he holding his turtle, it's like the tears went to, like, to this day, I don't know how many times I ever seen him smile like that. You know what I mean? So for me as a dad, I kind of took pride in knowing that, okay, nothing gonna happen to you with the turtle, but kind of helping you as a father, helping you overcome your fears. You know what I'm saying? Like that was monumental with me, as far as it went with DeAndre. Lysa was a whole nother topic. Lysa always tapped into other kind of emotions. He was the one that you worried about. He was a daredevil. He was the one that ain't no telling. Every time the phone rang, I might have to go to the hospital, because he was always, just so vibrant. Even as a young kid, like, every time we would have to go to school with him, it was always where him being 8 years old, but he thinking like somebody that's 22.
Right.
You don't realize as a child, you don't have the right to just say how you feel. Even though all your points are valid, even as a child, all your points are valid and you make total sense. You can't talk to adults like that, son. You know what I mean? So right. Just to see the maturation of the men that they become. DeAndre doing his thing in church and music, Lysa out here in the streets of Raleigh every week, helping lead the protests, doing his own thing, trying to get his young people organized. Like, man, as a dad, it's like, man, listen, I can't say I did a whole lot of things right in my life, but I take pride and joy, seeing the men that they turned out to become and all the stuff that they're doing, Right. So, for you guys, like, what's an example as a father? What's one of those joyful memories that you have as being a dad?
I'll start off. I think I have several. I mean, like, you got 4 kids, they gonna come with, triumph, joys, failures. They just gonna come with all. But one that I'm thinking of the most was of Dre. Dre is my 19-year-old, and he, always been into basketball, and he started playing in 6th grade for his middle school. And at that time, that was my first year of actually coaching. And so I coached him through middle school. He made all conference middle school. He was, kind of doing this thing. So he gets to high school. And so high school is, as we know, that's a different beast from middle school. Because, at that point, you're having to fight for, 70, 80 spots just to even be seen. And then you're going to, for him, he actually went to a high school in a different county. So he knew no one. So just being able to go through that adjustment at ninth grade, really caught on to school. But his biggest part was when he actually was 10th grade, because he felt like, you know what, I'm good enough to play varsity. I feel like I need to be playing. And so he tried out, of course, and he didn't make it. Angry galore. Didn't understand, like, yo, the coach don't like me. Da 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 da. You just got to prove yourself. And so it became to a point where I had a connection with the coach. He's like, I just want to see Dre's fire. I don't see Dre's fire. That's why I didn't put him on varsity. They took some injuries. Dre busted out, averaging 20 plus on JV. And so he had to pull him up. Like 4 games into his 10th grade year, he pulled him up to varsity. And within 2 games, he ended up having to start him. And it wasn't that the fact that he was out there just scoring. He just did the little stuff at that point as a 10th grader, to actually be able to start. And he started every game ever since. So, for me, it was good to see something that he really wanted and that he went over and beyond the Call of Duty to make sure that, yes, I'm supposed to be here, give me my props, because I've earned it. So, for that point, I'm proud of him for that.
For me, and obviously, just like all of you, there are thousands and thousands of moments like that. But maybe because of the law of recency, I'm going to go with a couple of things that have happened in the last 4 years or so. My daughter has always hated school, always, from day one, from kindergarten. I mean, she's just never been a fan of school. She never really applied herself the way that she needed to. I mean, she passed, but that was about the extent of it. She just kind of passed. And even though I was hoping she would go to college, I didn't know if she would or not. And I wasn't, fortunately for me, I've grown a lot over the years, and I wasn't, I got to a point where I wasn't going to force her to go to college. I determined that I was going to support her in whatever she decided to do, as long as it wasn't swinging from a pole. Like Chris Rock says, dad's only job is to keep your daughter off the pole. But
right.
I was pretty much going to support her in whatever she did. But fortunately, she did decide that she was going to go to college. Even though she didn't like school, she realized that that was kind of going to be what was necessary for her to be successful in life. So she decided to go to college. So that was one thing for me. Another thing was just having my first conversation with her as an adult. I remember, I think she was 19 at the time, and we were in the car driving somewhere. And, she's always been one to be, kind of reserved in her feelings a bit. She's never been one to really express a lot of different things. But we got into this conversation, and about 10 minutes into the conversation, I thought, wait, she's an adult. And we're sitting here having an adult conversation. It wasn't, granted, it was dad, daughter, but it was almost just like 2 friends just having a conversation. And something, something about that, it just did something to me. I can't really explain it. I got a bit emotional over that. It was like, man, my daughter's an adult. I mean, granted, she wasn't 21 and she's still reliant on me to pay for college and that sort of thing. But still, just having that sort of conversation with her, it just did something to me, and it meant a lot to me. So I have to point to that as well. And then probably the last thing that I'll mention is because she's a junior in college now, and her realizing her niche, finding what her niche is, because she struggled the first couple of years just trying to figure out what it was she wanted to do. She's a tremendous artist. She is, man, her talent is off the charts. But so she was in art. When she started off in communication, she switched to art. But then she wasn't really loving the specific art major that she had, the specialization she had. And then she took a graphic design course and absolutely fell in love with it. So when she got to that point and realized, okay, this is what I love and this is what I want to do, I was very happy at that point as well. So, but again, there are millions of moments that I can point to. I mean, again, she's 22 and there are just so many things. She makes me proud every single day. And she doesn't always realize it. I try to tell her that as much as I can, but she, I think she's finally at a point now where she realizes that I have no expectation of her to do what I've done. She's pointed out to me a couple of times that, you know, because I have 6 college degrees, one of which is a PhD. And so she, you know, she has pointed out a couple of times, like, you know, I feel like I have to live up to your expectations. And I'm like, there are no expectations. My only expectation is that you be the best, whatever that is, whatever that means, whatever it is that you want to do, you be the best at it. That's my expectation. I don't expect you to get 6 college degrees. That is not even near what my expectation is. So she's finally kind of come to realize that. And I'm thankful for that as well. So she doesn't, you know, and I try to tell her all the time how proud of her I am, you know, and just letting her know, look, you do you. You know, don't worry about what I have going on. You do you, and I'm going to be proud of you as long as you are doing it to the best of your ability. That's all that matters to me.
Right. Hey, what's up, Ty? Welcome aboard, bro.
Hey, what's going on, brother?
Happy Father's Day.
My apologies.
What's going on, man?
For being late. I was doing a honeydew. She had me on the Zoom launch call for her business, and I got strong-armed.
Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do, man.
Yes.
So
yes. Happy Father's Day,
fellas.
fellas. Happy Father's Day.
Thank you,
Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate it.
So you can come on in now, Ty. Like what we covered so far is, you know, who we are, you know, the joys of being a father, you know, a special memory that you got with the kids that you know that just made you proud as a dad. And then you can kind of speak on your own relationship with your dad if you want to, you know, if you want to get into that.
Oh, cool.
Shout out to Mr. Brisbane too, because I don't met your dad.
Tihee Brisbane. You know, Marv is my brother. You know, we worked at the airport for a long time together. And we're gonna beat y'all in spades if you want to sit down and play. That's my part.
It's not even a contest, bro. Not even a contest.
No,
this.
none at all. But I'll be married 23 years this year. We got 3 children, 2 daughters and a son. My oldest daughter, Tiffany, is 22. She just recently graduated from Sacred Heart University.
Yeah, big up,
and she's actually going to go enlist into the Navy as an officer this coming fall. My middle daughter is goes to RIT in Rochester. That's Taylor. And then I got a son that's 16 years old, TJ, you know, Tihee Jr., 6 foot tall, making me look short. But yeah, so I would say a proud moment. You know what? The proudest moment with all my kids, man, is their birth. You know, like I feel like it's an honor and a privilege that God gave me the responsibility to raise these kids, you know, and just seeing them grow into what they are and to who they are. You know, we encourage that they grow as individuals and who they are and let them make a lot of choices on their own. And, you know, so far it's working out for us in that particular retrospect. So, yeah, definitely my most proudest moment with 3 of them is the fact of them being here, you know what I'm saying, their birth. Like, to me, you know, we celebrate birthdays big. You know, we celebrate life. So, you know, while we got you, we're going to celebrate you and love you. And every day you're here is a special day.
Amen.
That's good, Ty. That's real good, because I tell people all the time, man, hey, listen, y'all, I always pray a little bit harder for you guys, because God don't really give us no saying nothing. But one thing he definitely knew about me was I did not know what at all to do with a girl. Like, I feel like if I hadn't had a girl, I would have been like suicidal. Like, people think I'm joking, but no, I would have been suicidal if I had a girl, man. Like, I don't have any sisters. I don't know what to do with a little girl, man. Like, I always tell people, man, listen, May 23rd, 1996, as a fully straight man, I have never been so happy to see a penis in my life. I mean, I was excited. Like, yes, yes.
I will say this though. It's easy to say that because you have no daughters, but I promise you, if you'd had one, you'd have made it work, figured it out.
Yeah.
You would have.
Yeah.
You
You're
would
a great dad. You have figured that out, no doubt.
Yeah.
I'd have been sad though, man. I would really needed y'all as brothers.
We all had to figure that out.
But somehow you do treat being able to have sons and daughters. There's something different about a daughter because
You have both.
you kind of feel like you gotta be in protect mode.
Yeah.
I do feel like my daughter is very strong-willed, very strong-minded, and there are times where she's like, "I got this. I'm not talking to you because I want you to resolve something. I'm talking to you because I just want you to be a sounding board." And so for me, that's the hardest thing about right now dealing with her is because she don't really need me as the father fix it. She just needs me as the father just to be my support because I already know where I'm going. I know what I need to do. I just want you to just sit down and just listen to me. And that's hard because we as men like to have so much control over stuff that we see somebody to come with a problem, we instantly feel like we got to resolve it. And you know, as our kids get older, like I said, they just want us to be sounding boards. At that point, we're just guiding the ship.
I'm with you on that too, Mike. I mean, not only as men and as Black men, but then in addition to that, for me, I spent 25 and a half years in the Air Force. So being in positions of leadership and mentorship and even as a life coach now, I mean, it's just in my nature. It's in what I do, you know, to fix problems, you know, so to just sit back and be a sounding board. Whew, it takes a little bit of practice.
It does. It does.
It's not, you know, it's not an innate thing. You really have to work at that, and it's tough. Yeah, you know, when you're talking about your kids and they come to you, you definitely want to say, okay, well, you know, talk to me about this, and let me advise you on that.
Right.
And like you said, sometimes they just want you to listen. That's it. Don't offer any advice or anything. I just need you to listen and know that you're there. That's all.
Right.
You know.
Right.
That's big. That's amazing. All right, so before we wrap things up, did anybody want to share a particular memory with their dad? Like we done kind of talked about things as being fathers. You know, what if you don't mind, like for the ones that dad was there, do you have a special thing that was about your dad that you want to pay honor and thank your dad for showing you? And if, let's say, for example, you had an absentee dad, let's say something that you experienced that you took out in life that you would have wished that you would have had your dad did, that you made sure as a child, as a parent, you didn't, you know what I mean, that your child didn't know what that was like, whether it was looking up in the stand to see your dad cheering for you, watch you walk across the stage, you know, see you go into the military camp or whatever the case may be, you know, what was one of those highlights of your life that you would always take away either from your dad or you being a dad?
Well, I guess since you mentioned my name, I'll go ahead and go. You know, and I've already stated that my biological dad wasn't in my life. I met him for about 10 seconds one time ever. But I feel fortunate. I can never once in my entire life remember a time where I felt like or said, I wish my dad was here. Not one single time. And I think that had a lot to do with the fact that my mom had one sister, but she had 4 brothers. So I have 4 uncles, all father figures in my life. And then, you know, and then there was Mar, who obviously, you know, who wasn't a father figure necessarily. He was more like a big brother because he was 6 years older than me. But at the same time, he played somewhat of that role in my life as well. And we were so tight and hung out all of the time. And I don't know, I just never, I've heard a lot of guys, a lot of brothers say, you know, how they wish their dad had been in their life. I just, you know, and I don't knock that. I mean, everybody has an experience. But for me, not one time, I'm 49 years old, not one time in my 49 years of existence can I ever remember thinking or saying, I wish my dad was here. I just never have. So
I'm glad you spoke up on that because you know, so many times we always hear, like you said, we hear the opposite end of the spectrum. You know, we always hear like, well, you know, like things might have been different if I had met my dad. Like, you know, them questions, why, what was wrong with me, or like, you know, always we hear a lot of these different reasons why people feel like they absentee or whether they was there or not plays a part in their life, but it feels good. Like you just said, here it is, you did a 25-year military career, got 6 degrees. I don't think you spent too many nights, dad, YB. Like,
Right.
but we rarely hear those stories. You know what I mean?
Right.
No, I do. I feel blessed that I had the men in my life that I did to look up to mentor me, and all those sorts of things. So yeah, and then also, as I stated earlier, the one thing, if there was any one thing that I learned from him, it was to do the opposite. You know, I knew from an early age that once I had kids, I was always going to be there for them, no matter what. I wasn't going to be like him. Again, even though I never felt like I missed him, I knew, you just know, you know, from a young age that you're supposed to have both parents. You know what I mean? You just kind of feel that. And then you have your friends who have both parents. So it's like, well, this is different. Even though I didn't miss it, you just knew something was different. But I knew that I wanted to be there for my kid regardless. So, you know, that was the one thing that I took away from him, was to be the opposite of what he was.
Gotcha. So, that's big. I like that. What about you? What's something that you took away from Mr. Harold?
You don't? Okay. And you might not know, which is quite okay, but I grew up in a single parent home where it was me and my mom.
Yeah,
and
I know.
So my biggest father figure growing up was actually my grandfather. And so, you know, like you said, whether it's basketball games, band at the time, at that time, my dad was just preoccupied with life. And so as I grew older, I quite naturally had resentment, because I'm like, you find time to do everything else, but the one thing that you actually made, you don't find that time for. And so going into college, I had just about shut him out of my life. Like, it was like, you know, at this point, I really don't need you as being my dad, blah, blah, blah. You know, so for me, a lot of my experiences as a father came from from his lack of being in my life. So when I had kids, me and him had a conversation. I was like, all right, let's just get this straight. You weren't the best of dads. And so it was at a time where my ex-wife's father had passed. I'm like, my kids need you to be the best granddad ever. So for me, it wasn't, you know, I'm at that time 28, 29. So that part of me needing dad all the time wasn't there, but my kids needed a grandfather. And so I'll be frank, I'll tell anybody, my dad wasn't the best dad, but he was the best grandfather that my kids ever had. And so, you know, lost his life to pancreatic cancer back in 2018. And so, you know, that's just been an ongoing struggle, because, you know, it's like, that was probably the best relationship I had at my dad's deathbed, because there'll be conversations that we have that we never had, you know, prior to. So just to be able to say, okay, you know, you weren't always there. It's okay that you weren't always there. I'm not mad that you wasn't always there. It's just the fact that when the time came for you to be there, you were there. And so I love him. I miss him. And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. It's all good, bro.
No doubt. Big ups to Harold. You know what I mean? And that says a lot as you as a man. You know what I mean? Because so many times, you know, we get the opportunity per se to meet our dads or heal those relationships. But, you know, sometimes, you know, you got some men that's like, you know, dude, I've been without you for 30, 40 years. Like, I don't need you now. But that's a big thing. And like I said, when we open the show up, like at the end of the day, difference or indifference. It don't matter how you feel about your dad. If it wasn't for him, you wouldn't be here.
Not here.
You know what I'm saying? You wouldn't even be here to feel some type of angry way or however you may feel. So at the end of the day, you got to give that man some kind of credit.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's like you say, I appreciate that. What you got for us, Jerome?
Man, my father passed away in 2006. Basically 14 years ago now, because it was right around Father's Day, with his a stroke. But to piggyback off what everybody said, but my dad was part of my life. Like my dad, he met my mother, whatever year they met. But he had, before my mother, he was married. My dad was married for many years, and my dad had probably about, I want to say, 15, 20 years of age difference him and my mother, right? So I think when my dad passed away, like 68-ish, give or take a year. But he had 5 kids with his first wife before he met my mom, or he might have met my mom, and that's probably why they got divorced. I don't know. I heard different stories, but it is what it is. But nevertheless, like my father, you know, he came into my mother's side of family life and just treated them like they was his own. So my mom had 4 kids already when she met my dad. And then my dad made me and my sister Sonia, which I'm the youngest out of my dad. Technically, out of all my dad kids, I'm the youngest out of 7. But my dad was always around. Hardest working man, go in every day at 3 o'clock, get off at midnight. He was a supervisor for Fred Whitaker Company. And one thing about my dad, he treated my family, I would say my mom's side of the family, like it was his dark family. And so I instilled a lot of his ways. I believe everybody tell me to this day. My dad was a working man, so he would go in that second shift. You know, more like second shift, you working pretty much going sometime in the afternoon and get off at midnight, late night. So he wasn't able to attend for my whole life for playing sports. My dad never had a chance to attend any of my football games, my basketball games, or my track, and I was quite the star. But he couldn't attend because why? My dad was working, right? He was working, providing for his family, and that's all he known for many years. He worked for that same company for many, many years. So he never had a chance to make any of my school events, any recognition, any All-American teams or any type of all-conference teams that I made or on the football field. He never could make those moments or even banquets. And you know how it be, banquets at the end of every, fall, every season sport. And I've been playing ball since I was a child. He was always working. But the one proud moment, and I'm proud of my dad for everything. I understood what he was doing. He had to work and provide for the family, right? So I understood it. I never held it against him. Dad, you got to work. I get it. But so the year when I graduated high school, I didn't know who was coming to graduation. I didn't, because I had a lot of family that didn't show up in my game. They knew I was really good. They knew they would read about it in the paper, see it on the news. But they ain't come. Like my brothers, I had some brothers that would come, some uncles that was always there. But my dad never made it. My mom never made it, I don't believe. So I'm walking across the stage and graduation is outside of my football field. And you know how they tell you, hey, please save your clapping and yelling and hollering until they finish. But nobody really never listens to that, right? You still yell when you come across.
Not us.
Right, not us, right? So
I ain't here for all these other kids. I'm here for my baby.
Absolutely, man. Because so first and foremost, as soon as you yelling. So I knew some of my buddies that was ahead of me. They go on their family yelling. I knew my a couple of my people, my cousin came, my brother. I knew they came. So as they called my name, it was like Jerome, Chris McLean, blah blah. That's I just heard a lot of people. I just like, what? I got some family out there, and they were standing in the grass, right? So I could see, and it was like 15 people, and I was like, and the person I saw and I remember was my dad, right? And I couldn't believe it. I was like, are you serious? Like my dad at my graduation? That's the proudest moment I ever remember, because my dad couldn't make a lot of my games because he always worked, but he made moment for that one special. So he had a chance out of all that my dad's 7 kids. his 7 children. Because he got a chance to see them all walk across the stage.
That's what's up.
So I was just saying, I'm the youngest.
Yeah.
So I guess he maybe, my sister graduated a year before me. My sister that ahead of me. But he got a chance to watch all these kids walk across the stage. And that's one of the proudest moments I have with my father. Because I remember, like, I never forget that moment. It was like it was yesterday, 2004.
That's good.
It was kind of good.
What you got, Ty?
Yeah, I would say most recently, I'm blessed to still have my father here, in my life.
Wow.
My dad and my mom actually divorced, though, when I was probably 2 years old. But my dad has been able to maintain a relationship with me throughout my life, picking me up on the weekends, things as such, so we've always had a good connection. But, and now as an adult, it's a friendship as well. So we was able to spend this Father's Day with my dad. And it was really good, it was excellent in the sense of we got some bad news about my dad not too long ago, but he was just so proud and happy. Almost all of my sisters made it. All together, I got 5 sisters. Almost all of my sisters made it, and everybody celebrated my dad here on Father's Day. So I was really proud for that. A lot of people showed up. I'm just proud of my dad. My dad's the Johnny on the spot type of cat. He might not be there all the time. He's going to say he's going to be there. He might not make it here and there, right? But when you need that cat, when you're in some trouble and you really need somebody to come through, that's my dad. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was in some situations in my life where I really needed to be there. I ain't going to speak on those because it's a whole long story. But my dad was there, like Johnny on the spot, man. You got a fire? He like the fire, man. Come put it out. So I appreciate and love my dad for that. No matter what, it's not just me. It's me. It's my other sisters. It's the whole family. Anyone he loves and cares for, he's the spot. You need him, he there, and he comes through.
I like that.
I'm blessed to still be here and enjoy. We're gonna be basically seeing him every week. We live in Virginia, he lives in Philadelphia, but we've made a point to stop. Whatever we doing to go see him every week in Philadelphia.
That's what's up. I like it, yo. No, nothing like the present. You know what I mean?
Nothing like the present.
I wrap it up with like I kind of was along the lines of Rome. Like fortunately for me, I always considered it a blessing because my mom and dad was always together. But growing up, I can remember that time. Like I can remember early as a kid, like I just, all I wanted to do was be like my dad. You know what I mean? I would watch this mud walk all the way down the street after he left out the house, go to work until he was out of view. You know what I mean? And somewhere along the lines, it went from that admiration to like just this thing as I started getting older. You know what I mean? Where I couldn't stand my dad. But I remember when my oldest son was born, like instantaneously, I thank God Almighty, it was like a light went off. You know what I'm saying? It was like, because I always remember my friends would talk about their different dads and stuff like that, and I'm sitting here like, well, my dad, I have my dad, but my dad, I'm great at football. He never seen me play, So I felt a kind of way like my dad was never there, but like my dad was a lot like Rome dad. My dad was a high school dropout that went to work 5 o'clock in the morning and to get back home 1 o'clock the next morning and do it all over again. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't look at it like, well, you get a pass because you're doing what you're supposed to do. I just looked at it. I was selfish enough to be like, well, no, I want to look up in the stands and see my dad. I didn't get it until I became a father. And it was like, all of a sudden, it's like the light bulb went off like, wow, okay, it ain't that it ain't like daddy wasn't at the games because he was on the couch drinking a cold one. He just ain't want to come. Like he was doing what it had to do, but it took me having a child for me to really appreciate it. And like today, present day, like my dad, I'm glad to say like I love my dad unconditionally. My dad is one of my heroes because he showed me he ain't just tell me how to love. He ain't just tell me how to be a man. He showed me. You know what I'm saying? And your actions go longer than any words could ever do. You know, like they say, love is an action word. So, you know, I live by saying, you know, I can show you better than I can tell you. You know what I mean? You can talk about loving you all you want to, but what are you showing me? You know what I mean? So I appreciate and I big up my dad. You know, happy Father's Day to my dad too. I was trying to get him on here, but you know, like Cass said, it's 2020.
Right.
He might when we maybe about 2 years into the show, he might figure out how to come on, and then y'all can hear from my dad too, Marvin Bennett. Say big up dads. But as we get ready to wrap it up, I wanted to talk about two people in particular. One, this man he didn't have any biological children himself, but he did have a daughter named Solange Everett. But Kev didn't mention it, but I'm sure he one of those ones for Kev. This man I'm talking about, Bishop James H. Everett, he was a father to thousands of us. This was our pastor. And even though he didn't have children himself, like I said, I can remember being young and it wasn't Brother Johnson or somebody that was dropping the teenagers off that came by themselves without their parents home. It was Bishop Everett. After he done sought the Lord for a word all day long, come deliver that word, greet everybody that's there. He didn't get shoved off the scene so he could, you know what I mean? Like he was accessible. And that's one of the reasons that we loved him. We appreciated him so much. And after being that tired, he still would take everybody a 15-passenger van. We might stop and get some ice cream on the way home. You know, he just dropped everybody else off. This man was pivotal in all of us and not just our spiritual upbringing, but who we are as men and women because of the life that he lived. There was no better example than I would challenge anybody. There was no better example of how to be godly, not just live the life and talk it, but walk the walk and talk the talk. So on this Father's Day, I want to give a big shout out to my bishop, my uncle that I miss so dearly, Bishop James H. Everett. And a few years ago back, I used to coach Pop Warner. And I was the type of kid that, you know, growing up in North, we're a little different. It's like as much as I loved football, like the most happiest times of my days is back at Westside playing football. You know, I didn't have that college experience like a lot of you guys did in the military. Quite so there was, you know, those big moments in your life. So a lot of my greatest memories was there in that locker room, South Orange Avenue at Westside High. And I remember we had this one dad, right? And as I became a man and I started coaching, I never forgot about him because he wasn't just my boy dad. Any kid that came in his proximity, it don't matter whether he know you or not. He gonna tell you what you need to hear, like you need to hear it, whether you want to hear it or not. You know, so you know when I coached Pop Warner, we had what we call team moms that would kind of, you know, help us gauge all the players and all that kind of stuff there. This mug took it upon himself to be a team dad. So, you know, on his Father's Day, he's no longer with us either. But I want to give a shout out to Mr. Big Clayton Wilson. Big Clayton, man, we miss you. We love you. Man, I appreciate part of the reason that I'm the man that I am today is because of you and how you was a father, not just a father for Rodney, but you was a father for the rest of the team and everybody else that came in your proximity. So we appreciate you. We love you. And we thank God for you.
For the
now,
record,
you see the chat?
I said, for the record, too, not bringing up Bishop was intentional for me.
Yeah, yeah. And I get it. I get it because I was kind of skeptical about doing it myself, but
yeah,
I figured I could go about maybe 2 minutes without breaking down.
Yeah. I appreciate you doing it because emotionally, I don't think I could have, you know, held up. So I'm glad you did.
Yeah, we love you and we miss you, Bishop James H. Everett. And hey, can you guys see the chats?
I can.
All right, so we'll start from top left, and we just
hold on.
You know, we're gonna end the show like this here. You know, I end all my shows with shout out to my boys, Mo and Lysa. Know that I love you intentionally and unconditionally. And on this Father's Day edition, I want to close out by saying Happy Father's Day to all the fathers that's out there. Happy Father's Day. And thank you. I appreciate all you guys that's on the panel tonight. Big ups. Special shout out to my man, Carl Merritt. He got 7. He was supposed to be on the show tonight, couldn't make it. And my man, Daniel Carr, he got 5. So I was really looking forward to hear some of Daniel's stories.
Right.
Daniel got stories for days. That's like a whole episode in itself. But we're going to close it out with saying a happy Father's Day to some of the fathers that, you know, they children are longer with us for numerous reasons, particularly police brutality and injustice. But their children are no longer here with us to tell them Happy Father's Day. So we're speaking on behalf of them. So I don't know how it is on you guys, but Mike, you can start it on Mike, Kev, Jerome, then Ty.
All right. Mike Brown Sr.
Freddie Gray Sr.
Let's go.
I hear you, Ty. Are you muted?
Yeah, Tihee Brisbane. It was me. Oh, my bad. Yeah, on mine, it was different. I'm looking at it on the watch party.
Got you. All right, so we got Felix Frazier Sr., the father of Philando Castilla. Mike.
All right, Moses Stewart, Yusef Hawkins.
Eric Garner Sr., Eric Garner's dad.
And we got Tracy Martin, father of Trayvon Martin. And last but not least, George Perry, father of Joy Floyd. Happy Father's Day to you guys and all you other fathers that are on this particular list that none of us want to be on, that we don't know your story. We salute you and say Happy Father's Day. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Right.
One love, peace. I love y'all.
Love
See
you,
you
brother.
next week.
All right.
Thank you. Love you.
Say Happy Father's Day. Thank you guys for tuning in. One love, peace. I love y'all. See y'all next that we don't know your story. We salute you and say Happy Father's Day. Thank you guys for tuning in. One love, peace. I love y'all. See you next week. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in.